divine sovereignty, human governance, and global accountability. A moral address to civil society, institutions, and people of conscience, prepared for public reading and institutional engagement. By Tebogo Shaba, Chosen One, the Chief Guardian of Humanity. Introduction. Why this address must be spoken aloud. This address is not offered as entertainment, provocation, or spectacle. It is offered as a moral intervention meant to be spoken, heard, and weighed carefully. Across generations, societies have advanced materially while regressing ethically. Technology accelerates, wealth concentrates, and power hardens, yet justice lags behind. The result is a world marked by recurring cycles of conflict, dispossession, and deception, where narratives are managed, history is selectively remembered, and accountability is postponed. This address calls for clarity. It insists that beneath political rhetoric and geopolitical maneuvering lies a foundational truth shared by billions. The earth does not belong to empires, markets, or strongmen. It belongs to God, and all who dwell upon it are stewards, not owners. When this truth is denied or obscured, governance becomes predatory, war becomes routine, and human dignity becomes negotiable. What follows is a structured, principled argument for restoring moral accountability in public life, grounded in faith, ethics, and lived human consequences. Section 1. Divine sovereignty and human stewardship. At the core of every legitimate moral system lies a recognition that power is not absolute. In the biblical tradition, the earth and its fullness belong to God. Human authority is therefore delegated, conditional, and accountable. Governments are entrusted with stewardship, care for people, land, and future generations, not domination or exploitation. When states act as if territory, resources, and populations are trophies to be seized, they violate this trust. Sovereignty, properly understood, does not license abuse. It imposes responsibility. No nation may claim divine favor while practicing injustice. No leader may invoke strength while neglecting mercy. History is unequivocal on this point. When rulers confuse possession with permission, collapse follows. This principle is not sectarian. It resonates across faiths and philosophies. It affirms that no people are disposable, no land is merely extractive, and no future may be mortgaged for short-term gain. Section 2. Cycles of power, erasure, and reset narratives. Human history reveals recurring patterns. Periods of expansion are followed by consolidation. Narratives are rewritten. Losses are normalized. New generations are educated into partial truths. This is not conspiracy. It is documented behavior of empires. Wars are framed as necessity. Economic shocks are called inevitabilities. Environmental destruction is externalized onto the poor. Over time, these cycles are presented as progress, while their victims are rendered invisible. The language of reset, whether economic, technological, or political, often masks continuity rather than change. Elites adapt. Ordinary people absorb the cost. Without moral reckoning, resets do not heal. They merely rearrange power. Section 3. Information, the internet, and manufactured consent. The modern public square is digital. Information moves faster than reflection. Images circulate without context. Algorithms reward outrage over understanding. In such an environment, deception need not be total to be effective. It only needs to be constant. This address does not claim that all institutions lie, but it insists that truth is frequently fragmented. Complex realities are reduced to slogans. Structural causes are replaced with personal blame. The result is confusion, fatigue, and disengagement, conditions under which power operates most freely. Reinforming the public, therefore, requires more than new facts. It requires restoring context, historical memory, and ethical framing. Section 4. Race, Power, and the Devaluation of Life. Any honest account of global injustice must address race, not as biology, but as a system of power, from colonial extraction to modern economic stratification. Black and marginalized peoples have disproportionately borne the cost of global order. This is not accidental. Dehumanization is functional. It lowers resistance to exploitation. It normalizes suffering. It renders violence abstract. When political rhetoric dismisses entire population, whether migrants, the poor, or racialized communities, it signals a moral failure. Strength that relies on humiliation is not strength. It is fear masquerading as authority. Section 5. Leadership, Rhetoric, and Global Consequences. Leadership matters because words authorize actions. When leaders speak casually of war, deride diplomacy, or glorify domination, they set conditions for escalation. This is true regardless of party, nation, or ideology. In recent years, global politics has seen a resurgence of zero-sum thinking. Nations as competitors rather than collaborators, force as proof of legitimacy, and disruption as virtue. Such approaches may mobilize domestic support, but they destabilize the international system. The consequences are not theoretical. They appear in displaced families, fractured regions, and normalized militarization. Section 6. The United States and the Burden of Power. As a dominant global actor, the United States carries disproportionate influence. Its policies ripple outward, shaping markets, alliances, and conflicts. With such influence comes responsibility. When American leadership prioritizes spectacle over substance or power over principle, the effects are global. Sanctions reshape economies far from Washington. Military postures alter regional balances. Rhetoric emboldens allies and adversaries alike. Critique of these dynamics is not anti-American. It is pro-accountability. No nation is exempt from moral evaluation. Section 7. Venezuela, Nigeria, and the Global South. Section 7A. Historical patterns of intervention, currency power, and African sovereignty. This address would be incomplete without confronting a hard historical record. The repeated use of covert action, economic pressure, and narrative warfare by powerful Western states, particularly the United States and its allies, against leaders and nations that sought independent economic paths, resource sovereignty, or alternatives to dollar-centered systems. This is not a claim of omnipotence, nor an argument that all internal failures are externally caused. It is a recognition of pattern. Across the 20th and early 21st centuries, when leaders in Africa and the Global South attempted to reclaim control over resources, currency, or geopolitical alignment, destabilization often followed through coups, assassinations, sanctions, or prolonged isolation. Consider the following cases, which are widely discussed in academic, journalistic, and declassified record contexts. Patrice Lumumba, Democratic Republic of Congo. Congo's first democratically elected prime minister advocated genuine independence and national control of resources. His removal and assassination occurred amid Cold War dynamics, internal divisions, and documented foreign interference. The consequence was decades of instability in one of the world's most resource-rich nations. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana. A leading voice for Pan-African unity and economic self-determination, Nkrumah was overthrown while abroad. Subsequent disclosures and scholarship have linked his removal to external interests unsettled by his vision of African economic independence. Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso. Sankara rejected debt dependency, promoted self-sufficiency, and openly criticized neo-colonial economic structures. His assassination ended a brief but transformative experiment in sovereign development. The reversal that followed illustrates how fragile reform becomes when external and internal pressures converge. Muammar Gaddafi, Libya. Libya's 2011 collapse followed a NATO-led intervention justified publicly on humanitarian grounds. The aftermath, state fragmentation, arms proliferation, and regional destabilization, demonstrates how regime change without reconstruction devastates societies far beyond their borders. Nelson Mandela, South Africa. Mandela's imprisonment occurred within a global system that tolerated apartheid for strategic and economic reasons. Western governments, including the United States, only shifted positions after sustained internal resistance and international pressure made the system untenable. These cases differ in context, ideology, and outcome, yet they share a common feature. When leadership challenged prevailing global power arrangements, whether monetary, strategic, or ideological, the response often extended beyond diplomacy. Currency power and the dollar-centered order. The global financial system is not neutral. The dominance of the U.S. dollar confers immense leverage. Control over liquidity, sanctions enforcement, access to markets, and the ability to isolate entire economies with administrative decisions rather than military force. When nations seek alternatives, regional currencies, commodity-backed systems, or non-dollar trade, they often face swift resistance. Sanctions, credit downgrades, capital flight, and reputational campaigns follow. These tools are legal, but they are not morally neutral. Their humanitarian impact is real, particularly on ordinary people, rather than political elites. The Sahel today, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. In the present moment, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are asserting new directions, questioning long-standing security arrangements, renegotiating resource control, and resisting external tutelage. The response has been familiar: sanctions, diplomatic pressure, media framing, and warnings of isolation. Whether one agrees with the choices of these governments or not, a consistent principle must apply. African nations possess the right to determine their own political and economic futures without coercion. Sovereignty cannot be conditional upon obedience. Africa's growing awareness of these patterns marks a turning point. Historical memory is returning. Younger generations are connecting past interventions with present constraints. This is not anti-Western sentiment. It is pro-dignity consciousness. Black lives, global value, and moral consistency. To affirm that Black Lives Matter is not merely to oppose overt racism, it is to challenge systems that repeatedly treat Black nations as experimental zones for policy, extraction, and control. Lives matter when economic choices are respected, political paths are not punished, and development is measured by human flourishing, not compliance. Any global order that demands submission in exchange for survival is morally unsustainable. True partnership requires equality, honesty, and restraint. Oh, this historical reckoning is not about blame alone. It is about learning, accountability, and refusing repetition. Without this honesty, appeals to democracy, human rights, and international law ring hollow. The future depends on whether power chooses humility or repeats history under new names. Venezuela and Nigeria illustrate different facets of global injustice. Venezuela's crisis reflects the intersection of internal governance failures and external pressure. Ordinary citizens navigate scarcity, while political narratives harden. Nigeria, rich in resources, exemplifies the tragedy of extraction without equity. Oil wealth has not translated into broad prosperity. Environmental degradation and corruption coexist with resilience and creativity among the people. These cases are not isolated. They reveal a system where the global South is often treated as a site of intervention rather than partnership. Section 8, Wasserman Miroir invasion and the illusion of security. Modern warfare is increasingly justified as preemption or stabilization. Yet history shows that violence begets instability. Invasions fracture societies. Occupations radicalize populations. Arms flows outlast political objectives. Security rooted in domination is fragile. True security arises from justice, inclusion, and cooperation. This is not idealism, it is empirical reality. Section 9, Environmental Justice and Sacred Trust. The land is not inert. It sustains life. When forests are razed, waters poisoned, and climates destabilized, the poor suffer first and longest. Environmental destruction is a moral issue. It violates the trust placed in humanity as stewards. It mortgages the future without consent. Faith traditions consistently affirm care for creation. Ignoring this mandate undermines both ecological and spiritual integrity. Section X, Law, Commandments, and Moral Order. The commandments across traditions are not relics. They articulate principles essential for social cohesion, restraint, honesty, respect for life, and care for the vulnerable. When law divorces itself from ethics, it becomes procedural rather than just. Compliance replaces conscience. The result is legality without legitimacy. Restoring moral order does not require theocracy. It requires humility, recognizing that power must answer to higher standards. Section 1, Justice, Mercy, and Accountability. Justice without mercy becomes cruelty. Mercy without justice becomes indulgence. Healthy societies hold both together. Accountability is not vengeance, it is restoration. It names harm, repairs damage, and reforms systems. Without it, grievances accumulate and explode. Section 12, the role of civil society. Institutions alone cannot carry moral renewal. Civil society, faith groups, educators, artists, organizers, translates values into culture. Public dialogue, when grounded in respect and truth, can resist manipulation. Silence, by contrast, is easily co-opted. Section 14, Awakening without extremism. Awakening is not hysteria. It is clarity. It rejects both apathy and fanaticism. It seeks understanding, not enemies. Truth spoken without love becomes weaponized. Love without truth becomes sentimental. Both are inadequate. Section 14, Reclaiming human dignity. Every person bears inherent worth. Policies that treat people as expendable betray this truth. Dignity is not earned by productivity or nationality. It is intrinsic. Governance that forgets this loses legitimacy. Section 15, Toward a Just Global Order. A just global order prioritizes cooperation over coercion, sustainability over extraction, and dialogue over domination. This is not utopian. Elements of it already exist in peace processes, international law, and grassroots solidarity. Section 16, Responsibility of Leaders. Leaders will be judged, not only by voters or historians, but by the consequences of their choices. Power is fleeting. Legacy is enduring. Wisdom recognizes this. Section 16, Responsibility of the People. Citizens are not spectators. Participation is a moral duty. Discernment is essential. Refusing dehumanization, questioning narratives, and acting locally all matter. Section 16, Final Appeal. This address is not a condemnation, but an invitation to return to principles that sustain life. The earth is God's. Humanity is entrusted, not entitled. Power must serve, not dominate. Conclusion, let justice take root. If this generation chooses courage over convenience, truth over comfort, and stewardship over domination, renewal is possible. Let justice take root, not as rhetoric, but as practice. Pause. End.